The massive alien ship hung in Earth's orbit like a silver needle against the black canvas of space. Inside the United Nations Emergency Chamber, Ambassador James Reed adjusted his tie for the 10th time. The room buzzed with nervous energy as world leaders waited for humanity's first contact with the Galactic Empire. "They're ready to begin transmission," announced a technician. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a tall, blue-skinned being with 4 eyes. The alien wore ornate robes covered in strange symbols that seemed to shimmer in the light. "Greetings, humans of Earth. I am High Commissioner Bell of the Galactic Empire. We have been observing your world for some time." Reed stepped forward, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Welcome, High Commissioner. We are honored to make your acquaintance." What followed was a 3-hour discussion that would change human history forever. The Empire, Bell explained, ruled over 500 intelligent species across 3,000 worlds. They had achieved peace through unity, technology, and strict control. Then came the questions about human history. "Our records show your species has engaged in..." Bell paused, all 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "Over 15,000 documented wars in your recorded history. How do you explain this barbaric behavior?" Reed felt the weight of every human leader's stare. His response would shape the Empire's view of humanity. "High Commissioner, we do not hide from our past. Each conflict taught us valuable lessons about peace, diplomacy, and understanding. The scars of war helped us grow." Bell made a sound that might have been a scoff. "Grown? Your planet still maintains multiple military forces. We observe at least 50 active conflicts across your world right now. Small disputes compared to our past," Reed replied. "We work constantly to resolve them. Each generation of humans has fought less than the last. We learn, we adapt, we improve." The High Commissioner's upper eyes narrowed. "The Empire achieved total peace centuries ago. Your species clearly requires guidance." Over the next few weeks, Earth received its introduction to galactic society. The Empire offered membership with conditions. Earth would be classified as a developing world, with limited voting rights and restricted access to advanced technology. Many humans felt insulted, but Reed advocated for acceptance. "We must play their game," he told the UN Security Council. "They see us as primitive because we fight. Let them. There's more to humanity than they understand." 1 month after first contact, Reed stood on the observation deck of the Imperial flagship, watching Earth grow smaller as they traveled to the Empire's capital for the formal integration ceremony. Next to him, Bell studied a datapad showing historical footage of human conflicts. "Fascinating," Bell muttered. "Your World War II. The scale of destruction. Yet afterward, former enemies became allies. Most species fight until one side is extinct." Reed smiled. "Humans don't just fight wars, High Commissioner. We end them. We rebuild. We forgive. Sometimes, the closest friendships are forged between former enemies." "A primitive perspective," Bell replied, but Reed noticed a hint of uncertainty in the alien's voice. "The Empire prevents wars through strength and order. No fighting means no need for reconciliation." "And how long has the Empire truly been at peace?" Reed asked quietly. Bell's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. "I don't understand the question. The Empire has known peace for centuries." "Peace and silence aren't the same thing," Reed said, turning to face the alien. "Sometimes the loudest conflicts are the ones no one is allowed to talk about." The High Commissioner stared at Reed for a long moment before turning away. "You should rest, Ambassador. We have a long journey ahead." As Reed headed to his quarters, he smiled to himself. The Empire thought they were getting a primitive species that needed civilizing. Instead, they were about to learn why humans had survived so many wars, not because they were the best at fighting them, but because they were the best at ending them. And somewhere in the vast empire, unrest was brewing. Humanity's real test was about to begin. 3 years after Earth joined the Galactic Empire, Admiral Tom Walker stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Peace, His eyes scanned multiple screens showing disturbing reports from across Imperial space. Another protest turned violent on Centauri Prime, his second-in-command reported. And the Outer Systems Alliance has seized 3 more trade stations. Walker rubbed his gray beard, watching as red warning dots appeared across the galactic map. The Empire was facing its first real challenge in centuries, and they were handling it poorly. They don't even remember how to deal with conflict anymore, Walker muttered. The Empire's response to the growing rebellion had been predictable. More rules, more restrictions, more punishments. But this only made things worse. Every harsh action by Imperial forces drove more worlds to join the Alliance. In his private quarters later that day, Walker received an encrypted message from Ambassador Reed on the Imperial capital. "The situation is worse than we thought." Reed's hologram flickered. "The Empire's leadership is in panic. They haven't faced organized resistance in 500 years. Their peace was built on power, not understanding." Walker nodded. "Our sensors detect massive fleet movements. They're preparing for war. A war they don't know how to fight," Reed said. "Or more importantly, how to end." The next few weeks proved them right. The Outer Systems Alliance launched surprise attacks across Imperial space. The Empire's responses were either too weak or too harsh. There was no middle ground, no attempt at negotiation. Walker watched it all from Earth's new space station. The humans had been quietly building their forces, using a clever mix of their own technology and carefully studied Imperial designs. The Empire barely noticed, still seeing humans as primitive warriors not worth watching closely. "Admiral," a young officer called out. "The Alliance just destroyed the Imperial fuel depot in the Orient sector. Civilian casualties are high." Walker closed his eyes for a moment. Both sides are making the same mistakes, fighting with anger instead of purpose. He opened a channel to all Earth forces. "This is Admiral Walker. Begin Operation Looking Glass. I want eyes on every major conflict zone. Record everything. Both sides will need to see the full truth eventually." Earth's ships, smaller but faster than Imperial vessels, spread across the galaxy. They didn't interfere, just watched and recorded. The Empire was too busy with the rebellion to care about human observers. In the following days, the death toll rose. Billions died as ancient weapons were unleashed. The Empire's peace had made them forget the true cost of war, while the Alliance's anger made them careless with lives. "Send the data to Ambassador Reed," Walker ordered. "It's almost time." Reed's response came hours later. "The Imperial Senate is in chaos. 3 core worlds have joined the rebellion. The Emperor has gone into hiding. They're asking for help." Walker allowed himself a small smile. "And the Alliance? Also taking heavy losses. Their leadership is struggling to control their own forces. They didn't expect to be so successful." "Both sides are ready then," Walker said. "They just don't know it yet." He turned to his crew, their faces illuminated by the glow of battle reports from across the galaxy. Humanity had spent 3 years preparing for this moment, not to fight, but to help end what was coming. "Send word to all Earth forces," Walker commanded. "Operation Peacemaker begins in 48 hours. His crew looked nervous but determined. They had trained for this, studying every major peace treaty and post-war reconciliation in human history. "Sir," one officer asked, "what if they don't want our help?" Walker looked at the galaxy map, now covered in conflict zones. "Sometimes the best doctors have the most unwilling patients, and humanity has more experience healing from war than any species in the Empire." The stage was set. Earth's forces were ready. The galaxy was about to learn why humans didn't just fight wars, they ended them. And Admiral Tom Walker would make sure this ending would lead to real peace, not just silence. The galaxy erupted in flames. Commander Kate Stone watched from the bridge of her stealth ship as the Outer Systems Alliance unleashed their first major attack. Massive warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, their weapons already firing. "Record everything," she ordered her crew. The humans had positioned observation vessels throughout the galaxy for this moment. They needed to document the true cost of this war. The Imperial Defense Fleet above New Saturn never stood a chance. Their weapons were advanced, but they had forgotten the art of real combat. Centuries of peace had made them soft. Within hours, the planet's orbital stations burned. Alliance forces are targeting civilian areas, her sensor officer reported, voice shaking. They're not even trying to avoid population centers. Stone gripped her command chair tighter. Keep recording. Both sides need to see what they're doing. Across the galaxy, similar attacks happened at the same time. The Alliance had planned well, striking at major trade routes and production centers. Imperial forces scrambled to respond, but they were too slow, too confused by the savage efficiency of their enemy. Commander, her communications officer called out. Message from Admiral Walker. All ships are to maintain position, but prepare for Phase 2. Stone nodded. Earth's forces watched as the death toll climbed. The Empire had forgotten how devastating real war could be. The Alliance, driven by centuries of anger, didn't care about the cost. In the next few days, billions died. Not just soldiers, but civilians. Entire space stations filled with families were destroyed. Planets were bombarded from orbit. Supply lines were cut, leaving whole systems without food or medicine. This isn't war, Stone muttered, watching another civilian transport explode. This is slaughter. Her ship's AI displayed the growing casualty numbers. 3 billion dead in the first day, 7 billion by the end of the week, 15 billion after 2 weeks. Hundreds of worlds cut off from supplies. Thousands of ships destroyed. Millions of refugees with nowhere to go. The Empire finally began to fight back, but their response was worse than the attacks. They used banned weapons, ancient tools of destruction that killed everything they touched. Entire planets were made uninhabitable. Message from Ambassador Reed, her communication officer announced. The Imperial Senate is requesting an emergency meeting with Earth's representatives. Stone smiled grimly. And the Alliance. Their leadership just contacted us too. They're asking for humanitarian aid. Just as Admiral Walker had predicted, both sides were starting to realize the true horror of what they'd unleashed. They had wanted war without understanding its real face. Stone opened a channel to her fleet. All ships, prepare for Phase 2. Humanitarian vessels, move into position. Remember your training. We're not here to fight their war. We're here to end it. Her crews had trained for months for this moment. They knew what to do. Earth's ships began moving into pre-planned positions, ready to create safe corridors for refugees and aid supplies. Commander, her sensor officer called out suddenly. Large energy spike detected. The Empire is, oh no. Stone's screen showed an Imperial dreadnought preparing to fire a planet-killer weapon at an Alliance world. At the same time, Alliance forces were moving plague bombs toward Imperial civilian centers. She hit her emergency command channel. Admiral Walker, they're about to cross the line. We need to move now. Walker's response was immediate. All Earth forces, Operation Peacemaker is now active. Execute Phase 2 immediately. Show them what humanity can do. Stone took a deep breath. Humanity had spent 3 years preparing for this moment. They had watched, learned, and built while the Empire dismissed them as primitive. Now it was time to show the galaxy why humans didn't just fight wars. They stopped them. All ships, Stone commanded, combat systems online. Let's go save them from themselves. The Imperial Dreadnought's planet-killer weapon never fired. In the blink of an eye, Earth's hidden fleet appeared between the massive ship and its target. Commander Stone's voice rang out across all channels. This stops now. The Imperial captain laughed. Move aside, primitive. Your ships are no match for. His words cut off as Stone pressed a button. In an instant, every weapon system on the Imperial dreadnought shut down. Their engines went dark. The mighty warship floated helplessly in space. How? The Imperial captain whispered. Did you think we spent 3 years doing nothing? Stone asked. While you ignored us as primitives, we studied your technology, and we improved it. Across the galaxy, Earth's forces revealed themselves. Admiral Walker's voice broadcast to all ships, Imperial and Alliance alike. This is Earth Defense Force. We are implementing a forced ceasefire. Any ship that fires on another will be disabled. Any ship threatening civilians will be shut down. The Alliance forces didn't believe the warning. They launched their plague bombs toward Imperial worlds. Their weapons suddenly changed course, trapped in containment fields generated by hidden human ships. Impossible. An Alliance commander sputtered. Your technology isn't this advanced. No, Walker responded. We just use it differently. Humanity learned long ago that the best weapon is the one you never have to fire. Earth's ships moved with incredible speed, positioning themselves between fighting forces. Their technology was a perfect mix of human innovation and reversed engineered Imperial systems. While the Empire had focused on bigger weapons, humans had developed better ones. Commander Stone's fleet created a safe zone around a refugee convoy. When Imperial ships tried to attack, they found their weapons wouldn't work. When Alliance vessels attempted to slip past, they discovered their engines wouldn't respond. This is impossible. The Imperial High Command broadcast. Your species is too young, too primitive. Admiral Walker's response was calm. We're not primitive. We're experienced. Our history of war taught us something you've forgotten: how to end conflicts without destroying everything. The next few hours showed the galaxy humanity's true power. Earth ships created safe corridors for refugees. Human medical vessels reached cut-off worlds. Advanced containment fields trapped dangerous weapons. Defensive shields protected civilian areas. Communication systems were restored for peace talks. The Empire and Alliance watched in shock as their mighty fleets were rendered harmless by technology they didn't understand. Humanity had prepared not to fight, but to stop others from fighting. In her ship, Commander Stone received a message from a refugee transport captain. Thank you. We thought no one would help us. Helping is what humans do best, she replied. We've been on both sides of war. We know how to heal its wounds. Admiral Walker addressed all ships again. To all Imperial and Alliance forces, your weapons are now disabled. Your engines will work only to move away from combat zones. We have established safe zones around all civilian areas. He paused before continuing. In 1 hour, Earth will host emergency peace talks. Your leaders will attend. This is not a request. Commander Stone watched her screens as the fighting slowly stopped. Not because the Empire and Alliance wanted to stop, but because they couldn't continue. Earth's technology had changed the rules of war itself. Sir, her officer reported, both sides are standing down. They're asking for our help with evacuations. Stone smiled. Then let's show them what humanity does best. Send in the medical ships, launch the relief supplies, begin rescue operations. As Earth's ships moved to help their former enemies, Stone thought about how wrong the Empire had been. They had seen humanity's history of war as a sign of weakness. They never understood that each conflict had taught humans something valuable. Now the galaxy would learn why humans didn't fight wars anymore. They ended them. The grand meeting hall of Earth's space station, Unity, was filled with tension. Imperial and Alliance leaders sat on opposite sides, glaring at each other across the gleaming table. Ambassador Reed stood at one end, while Admiral Walker and Commander Stone flanked him. What gives you the right to force us here? Demanded the Imperial High Chancellor, his 4 eyes flashing with anger. Walker tapped a button. The room's walls transformed into screens, showing the devastation from both sides of the war. Burning planets, destroyed stations, dead civilians floating in space. This gives us the right, Reed said quietly. 15 billion dead in 2 weeks. 30 systems cut off from food and medicine. Over 100 planets facing environmental collapse. The Alliance leader stood up. The Empire started this with their oppression, and you responded by killing innocent civilians. Commander Stone cut in. She pressed another button. New images appeared. Alliance forces bombing civilian centers, Imperial ships using banned weapons. Reed placed a data crystal on the table. This contains evidence of war crimes from both sides. Every attack, every civilian death, every broken law. If you don't accept our peace terms, this information goes public to every world in the galaxy. The room fell silent. Admiral Walker stepped forward. You've both forgotten something important about war, something humanity learned through thousands of conflicts. He waved his hand, and the screen showed new images. Earth's history, World War II's devastation, followed by the Marshall Plan, former enemies becoming allies, rebuilding together. The true strength of a civilization isn't how well it fights wars, Walker continued. It's how well it makes peace. Reed activated a hologram showing Earth's peace proposal. Immediate ceasefire enforced by human ships. Free elections in all systems. Equal representation in a new government. Fair distribution of resources. Joint rebuilding efforts. War crimes trials for the worst offenders. Guaranteed rights for all species. This is outrageous. The Imperial Chancellor sputtered. You can't. We can, and we will. Stone interrupted. She brought up live feeds showing Earth's ships across the galaxy, maintaining peace zones, delivering aid, protecting civilians. Your weapons won't work until you agree to peace. Your ships can't fight, but we will help you rebuild. The Alliance leader laughed bitterly. And if we refuse? Reed's voice remained calm. Then you both lose everything. Your weapons will remain disabled. Your ships will stay grounded. And every citizen in the galaxy will see exactly what their leaders did in this war. He paused, letting his words sink in. Or you can choose peace. Real peace, not just the absence of war. You can build something better than the Empire or the Alliance ever was alone. Admiral Walker added, humanity will guarantee this peace, not through force, but through cooperation. We've learned that lasting peace comes from understanding, not fear. The room fell silent again as both sides considered their options. They looked at the screens showing their war crimes, then at the images of Earth's reconstruction efforts after its own wars. Finally, the Imperial Chancellor spoke. How? How do we begin? Reed smiled for the first time. By talking. Really talking. About fears, needs, hopes. About building trust. It won't be easy, but humanity will help. Commander Stone brought up new holograms showing relief efforts already underway. Our ships are already delivering aid to the worst-hit areas. We've evacuated millions of refugees. Medical teams are treating the wounded on both sides. This is the human way, Walker explained. We don't just stop wars. We help heal their wounds. We turn enemies into allies. We build something better from the ashes. Reed placed 2 documents on the table. These are preliminary peace agreements. Sign them, and we begin the real work, building a lasting peace. The leaders of both sides stared at the documents, then at the images of destruction around them. Slowly, they reached for the papers. The galaxy was about to learn humanity's greatest lesson. True victory doesn't come from defeating your enemy, but from making them your friend. 2 months after the forced peace talks began, Earth's space station, Unity, had become the center of a new galactic order. Ambassador Reed watched from his office as Imperial and Alliance ships worked together to deliver supplies to damaged worlds. It's still hard to believe, Commander Stone said, joining him at the window. 3 months ago, they were trying to destroy each other. Reed smiled. Sometimes people just need someone to show them a better way. The station's main conference room had been transformed. Where there were once 2 sides glaring at each other, now mixed groups of Imperial and Alliance representatives sat together, working on different aspects of the peace process. Admiral Walker entered the room, carrying new reports. Another successful joint operation. Imperial engineering teams and Alliance medical units working together to rebuild the colony on New Saturn. The progress had surprised everyone except the humans. Earth's history had shown that former enemies could become the strongest allies once they understood each other. Ambassador Reed, a young Imperial aide, rushed in. The Joint Council is ready for today's session. The main chamber was packed with representatives from both sides. At the center table sat the former Imperial Chancellor and Alliance leader, now co-chairs of the Transition Council. Today's agenda, Reed announced, includes the restoration of trade routes, refugee resettlement, and the new constitutional framework. The Imperial Chancellor stood first. Our engineering teams report that with Alliance help, we've restored communications to 80% of affected systems. And Imperial medical knowledge has helped us save thousands of lives in former Alliance territory. The Alliance leader added. Both leaders shared a respectful nod. Commander Stone displayed the latest recovery statistics. 50 major trade routes reopened. 200 million refugees returning home. 30 worlds beginning reconstruction. Joint peacekeeping patrols successful. New elections planned in all systems. This is what peace looks like, Walker commented quietly to Reed. Not just stopping the fighting, but building something together. The meeting continued as both sides discussed problems and solutions. There were still arguments, but now they were solved through debate and compromise, not weapons. We've learned more about governance in 2 months of peace than in centuries of empire rule, the Imperial Chancellor admitted during a break. We thought silence meant stability. The Alliance leader added, and we thought destruction was the only answer. We were both wrong. Reed watched as former enemies worked together on reconstruction plans. Earth ships still patrolled the galaxy, but they were increasingly joined by mixed crews of Imperial and Alliance personnel learning to work together. The humans were right, as senior Imperial official said to his Alliance counterpart. Real strength isn't in winning wars, but in building peace. Later that day, Reed received the latest reports. Joint scientific projects starting. Cultural exchange programs planned. Mixed species colonies being established. Shared defense systems in development. New trade agreements signed. It's happening faster than we expected, Stone told Walker as they reviewed the progress. They're actually working together. Because deep down, they wanted peace, Walker replied. They just didn't know how to achieve it. Sometimes the galaxy needs a teacher. As the day ended, Reed stood before the council one last time. Tomorrow, we begin drafting the final peace treaty. Not a document of surrender, but a roadmap to a united future. The room erupted in applause. Not the forced kind, but genuine appreciation. Imperial and Alliance representatives shook hands, shared meals, and made plans for cooperation. Outside the station, Earth ships still maintained their peacekeeping positions, but they were no longer needed to prevent fighting. Instead, they helped with reconstruction, teaching, and healing. You know what the best part is? Reed asked his human colleagues as they watched the former enemies leave together. They're not just copying our solutions. They're finding their own way to peace. Stone smiled. That's because we didn't force them to be peaceful. We showed them how to build peace for themselves. The galaxy was learning that humanity's greatest gift wasn't the ability to fight wars, but the wisdom to end them and build something better from the aftermath. 1 year after the war ended, the galaxy gathered to witness history. The massive hall of Earth's Unity Station was filled with representatives from every world, former Imperial and Alliance alike. Ambassador Reed stood at the podium, looking out at faces that no longer showed hatred or fear, but hope. Behind him, Admiral Walker and Commander Stone sat alongside the new Galactic Council members. 1 year ago, Reed began, this room held enemies who couldn't imagine peace. Today, it holds partners building a shared future. The screens around the hall showed images of the galaxy's transformation. Former enemy fleets on joint peacekeeping missions. Mixed crews working on space stations. Children from different species playing together. Rebuilt cities more beautiful than before. trade ships flowing freely through space. The Treaty of Earth isn't just a peace document, Reed continued. It's proof that the greatest victories don't come from fighting, but from understanding. The Imperial Chancellor, now co-leader of the Democratic Galactic Union, stood up. We thought humans were primitive because they had so many wars. We were wrong. Each conflict taught them something we had forgotten: how to make real peace. The Alliance leader joined him. They showed us that strength isn't about having the biggest weapons, but about having the wisdom to not use them. Admiral Walker activated a hologram showing the new galactic map. The old borders between Empire and Alliance were gone, replaced by open trade routes and shared spaces. In 1 year, Walker reported, we've achieved what seemed impossible: 0 military conflicts, free elections on all worlds, open borders for all species, shared technology development, united defense fleet, mixed species colonies thriving. Commander Stone added her own report: refugee crisis resolved, war damage repaired, new medical breakthroughs from cooperation, joint scientific discoveries, cultural exchange programs successful. But the greatest achievement, Reed said, isn't in these numbers. It's in the change we see every day. The screen showed new images: former enemies working side by side, mixed families celebrating together, joint exploration missions, shared schools and universities, combined emergency response teams. Humanity's gift to the galaxy wasn't our technology or our strength, Reed explained. It was our experience. We learned from every war, every peace treaty, every reconciliation, and now we've shared those lessons. The new Galactic Constitution was displayed on all screens. At its heart was a simple truth: lasting peace comes from understanding, not force. An elderly Alliance veteran stood up, supported by an Imperial medical officer. We fought for decades, the veteran said. Now my grandchildren play with Imperial children. The humans showed us a better way. Admiral Walker stepped forward. Earth will remain the guarantor of this peace, not through weapons, but through wisdom. Our ships will protect the innocent and help those in need. Commander Stone added, and we'll continue to share our knowledge, because the strongest galaxy is one where all species work together. The moment everyone waited for had come. Leaders from all worlds approached the central table where the final document lay: the Galactic Charter of Unity. Reed spoke one last time. This isn't the end of our journey. It's the beginning. We've proven that enemies can become allies, that hatred can turn to friendship, that peace is stronger than war. As hundreds of leaders signed the document, the hall erupted in cheers. Outside, ships from all species flew together in formation, celebrating the new era. They still don't fully understand, do they? Stone whispered to Walker. What's that? He asked. That humans didn't end their war because we were stronger. We ended it because we remembered how to be peaceful. Reed overheard and smiled. Maybe that's the greatest lesson we taught the galaxy, that true power isn't in knowing how to fight wars, but in knowing how to end them, Walker finished. As the celebration continued, Earth's representatives watched their greatest victory unfold, not a victory of weapons or might, but a victory of peace, understanding, and hope for a better future. The galaxy had learned. Humans don't fight wars. They end them, and in ending them, they build something greater than any empire or alliance could achieve alone.